Welcome to another edition of Geopolitics and Empire. Quick reminder, support the broadcast. Best way to do that, become a paid subscriber on Substack. $5 a month or $50 a year or more. We do private weekly Zoom chats with paid subscribers only. I do a weekly news wrap up for paid subscribers only. And sometimes we bring back past guests to chat with paid subscribers. Donate to Geopolitics and Empire. Best way to do that is by buying me a coffee or sending pesos through Wise or DonorBox, and you can purchase a consultation if you want to chat with me about anything. And do check out this month's sponsor, Mikkel Thorpe's Expat Money Summit. It's a free online summit taking place October 7th to the 11th. You can watch it for free. It'll be streamed for 24 hours. But after that, you'll have to then purchase the upgrade, VIP upgrade, which is, I think, $497. But if you use the promo code Empire, you'll get $100 off. I'll be also participating in one of the VIP panels there. And people like Ron Paul and Scott Horton and Doug Casey and Mark Faber will be speaking there. And it's all about internationalization. So if you're looking for your end of the world getaway or ideas on how to get second or third or fourth passports and residencies, check out the Expat Money Summit. And do check out also my affiliates like Wise Wolf Gold, EasyDNS.com, Legal Shield, and others. And leave a podcast review if you have not already. Returning to the transmission, it's been quite a while. My friend from the Netherlands, Rico Brouwer, he's got a great podcast, Potkaars. The link is in the description. Welcome back, Rico.
Hi, Roger. It's a pleasure to be back. And indeed, we go back a couple of years. We met in 2018, I think. I met Alfred de Zayas at an event about Catalonia. And through him, I ran into you because you were her student back in the day, I think. And I consider you my friend. And we did some work also over the last years, marathon live broadcasts. Same would go for Alfred de Zayas, who's a returning guest with me also, and also partly Dutch. Yeah. So
yeah, I mean it's been fun. I can't believe so much time has passed. And I think you first reached out to me, and I was that was, you know, I think as you say, you're I would say probably one of the fewer podcasters that I'm closer with. And we did that live stream, election live stream in 2020. We had the WikiLeaks editor, I can never pronounce his name,
Kristen Rufnison.
Yes, among other interesting folks. And
I asked Kristen if he wanted to be our guest, and it was the election night where Trump lost, and he said, well, it's going to be middle of the night. And I said, yeah, well, we're going to be up anyway. He said, yeah, well, that's true. So he decided to be our guest. Also a long time ago, no? Lots have changed since then.
Yeah, and you were mentioning in the message that things are just accelerating. And also, you were my very first guest on my TNT radio program. You know, in March of 2022, you were the first of the three guests I had that day. I think they were Jose Nino, Matt Errett, and yourself. And that chapter has come to a close. And so interesting times, and you know, maybe to catch up with you, because you've been doing a lot of interesting work. For people who aren't familiar with you, you attempted to run for politics, I think, with the Pirate Party. You've gone down to a lot of these protests, I think at the embassy where Julian Assange had been at his court cases. So you've been involved on the street with a lot of this stuff. You've got your Potkaars podcast, which is in English and Dutch. You've got, I think, Follow the Science. And then we can talk about this. I just got your vinyl. You wrote a song, Bitcoin, Not Gold. The link is in the description, so people can go to the website and listen to it.
Oh, I can't. That's posters.
And you get the poster, yeah. Okay, yeah. Tell us about where your head is at, and what you're working on.
Yeah, maybe if you want to start like that, maybe where I'm coming from. I'm 53 years old. I'm married. We have 2 kids and a dog. And for the biggest part of my life, I had a well-earning but slightly boring IT job. So I'm an IT specialist, management, virtualization, security, storage, those things. And then I saw well, 9/11 somewhat, but mostly Snowden and the way the world reacted on that made me turn activist. I wanted to do something. So I got out of my couch and went to events, and that's when I ran into Pirate Party. And I thought, well, and if I look back, somewhat naive, if the problem is in The Hague, that's where our government is, then I need to go to The Hague and fix it. If I want to do something, I'm going to have I want it to work. So let's see if we can do politics. So I joined up with the party that I felt most comfortable with at that time. And I'm not connected with the Pirate Party anymore. I have not been for a couple of years. They've turned woke. And if you turn woke, as the saying goes. So there's not much left of the Pirate Party in the Netherlands, at the least. But back then, they had the choice to be on the what I call woke agenda or libertarian agenda, which was where it came from. I mean, it originated from a libertarian standpoint. I joined them. I joined that campaign 2016, 2017. We lost horribly, didn't get a seat. And then, and during that campaign, I met a musician, a Dutch musician, a protest singer, Harry Loco. And I saw Harry do his thing with his guitar, and I had the tie on and the jacket on. I go, oh fuck! What I'm doing something completely wrong. So I thought then, in 2017, when we lost, I'm going to be a protest singer. And it was in 2017 that I wrote that song, the Bitcoin song, which is now on vinyl. I actually created an old school vinyl. I wrote it then as Bitcoin was going up, and a friend of mine who organizes demonstrations here, a former policeman, Dennis Spaanstra, who got Police for Freedom to the Netherlands, and he's now no longer a policeman, and he was fired partly because organizing demonstrations. But he's a sound engineer also, and Dennis said, if there's one song that you want to record, which one would that be? I'm going to record it properly for you. And I said, well, this is where it all started, and it's going to happen again. So let's do the Bitcoin song. But you have to play the guitar. I knew Dennis. He was here. I interviewed him, and I saw his passion for guitar playing. So I said, well, you have to play the guitar. So this is my song. I wrote it. I came up with it. But everything apart from singing and bass guitar is played by Dennis and his computer. But he hacked the system. As a former police officer, he came up with ways to demonstrate when demonstrations were forbidden in the Netherlands. And in 2018, I started my broadcast channel, Potkaars. And it sprung from the Catalonia, Spain independence movement. We were there from with the Pirate Party as international observers. And Carles Puigdemont, the former president of Catalonia, is still in exile. He was in Barcelona not too long ago delivering a speech. Did you see that? So there was a pirate action.
Weren't they trying to come after him? The Spanish authorities?
So he hid and he sneaked into, I don't know how it went, but in my imagination, he sneaked into Barcelona and he was up there on stage in front of the parliament in Barcelona delivering a speech. And then he exited, like Elvis, he exited the stage, left the building, and went back to Belgium, to Waterloo. I believe he lives in Waterloo. I think that's on purpose, the location where he lives, close to Brussels. But I made a report there. That's how I started with Potkaars. And I've been doing that since 2018. And also I aspire to be protest singer. I think that's what this interview is going to be about also. Because I don't make too many interviews right now, as I don't know where the world's going. And I do know that even the most, I'm going to make you a big compliment, but whatever, the most conscious, honest journalists around, like you and some others, are facing persecution on their own ways. And you just shared how you're being well, you might want to explain what's going on. We shouldn't spend too much time on that, but people are throwing mud at your channel. Well, if you listen to your interviews, they're genius, and they have been on a constant quality level for years. I myself am reluctant to continue the way I did because I don't know the backlash that's coming. And like with the demonstrations that I filmed, as a journalist, I filmed the demonstration in the Netherlands. And you have seen that there was massive police violence. Niels Meltzer, the rapporteur on torture from the United Nations, even tried to make a report on that before he was fired or he left to a new job. I filmed those things, but I'm proud to say that, knock on wood, that I never ended up in the violence or never ended up being arrested. I want to keep that going, so I'm still journalist, but I need to see where all this madness is going before I decide how to reinvent my journalism. And until I do that, I'm gonna change the world through music, Hervoye.
I mean, that I have nothing against that. I've even thought sometimes that, I've had a good run on this podcast. And I always say, I feel like I've reached the top of the mountain because most of the people you've seen on Geopolitics and Empire, when I was like my younger self in the 2000s, when I was a teenager, an undergrad, and a graduate student, I was reading all these books, William Engdahl and Francis Boyle and Daniela Ganser and Ron Paul. And then I can't believe, I made my dreams come true. I was able to interview all of my intellectual heroes and meet some of them. I met Ron Paul, I met Doug McGregor last year, I met a whole host of folks. I was even invited to Ron Paul's house earlier this year, but I couldn't make it. And so for me, it's just like that was a big check off the list, and kind of what you're saying, the danger that's coming. And I've had my American security services, like they're minor scars. I consider them not that big a deal, but still to have. I always mention this: the Department of Homeland Security taking me off of PayPal, and then I get more frequent than not secondary screening when I travel to the U.S., which is more for dissidents. And so I can understand so sometimes I think of my father, who was more politically active in the 90s when Croatia became independent, and now he just kind of has this attitude, it's all a scam. I interviewed John Bosnic, this is Serbian guy, and he said the same thing. His father was involved in politics, but then when he got older, it's like when you get older, you realize it's all just so dirty, and you just kind of want to turn your attention towards other things, like you say, like music or other hobbies or passions or activities.
I'm not turning away. Don't get me wrong. I'm not turning away. The thing is, I failed in convincing the big audience through politics, and rightfully so. I don't want to do it being a Biden or Harris or Trump. I want to do it the way the true protest singers do it. So that's why I want to do that. But I'm not turning away. I'm just searching, being a pirate, searching for a proper approach to get this thing going. So I'm searching. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah, and I still find what I'm doing, I find enjoyable. I still enjoy getting up, interviewing folks, collecting the news, and just analyzing. I'm so people are clear. I like what one of my guests, the German scientist Jobs Landgrip, said, who's got a great book, by the way, on AI. He said, I never heard anyone say this. He said, I'm a chronicler. So and that's how I always envision. I'm chronicling what's happening. It's like, okay, I'm trying to make sense. This is what's happening. I'm not like I'm giving you the solution. So I'm just helping people figure out what is going on. And maybe.
Now, hang on. Before you change topic, this is exactly the reason why, and I don't say this too often also, maybe never, but why I started this channel. So the financial crisis was when I, as a comfortable IT person, figured, oh God, I got everything wrong. And as an IT person, nothing breaks. I build systems, they do not break. If it breaks, cool, it's redundant. So I don't get up at night. Everything always works. That's when you're a good IT person. I was a good IT person. And then the foundation under my existence was broken into pieces with the financial crisis 2008. And that's when I started searching and going back to school and finding people like the people you interviewed and many others, educating myself through them. But that was a lonely job. And my family didn't understand what I was doing, why I was feeling depressed, nor was my wife and the people, my neighbors and my brother and all the... They've come around, but it took Corona crisis to for some of them to open their eyes. But there was a lonely search. And the reason that I'm doing what I'm doing is the people that are waking up now, they don't have to be alone. They have to find my channel. That might be a hassle in the algorithm ghetto. But the content is out there, and my channel is a camera on my shoulder, following me on my search to figure out what's going on in the world. That's all what I'm doing. Let people be part of my search, and that's what you just said. So that's the connection we feel, I think.
And just on that topic, what's your sort of thought? We were talking before we hit the record. You know, I was on TNT. TNT seems to be, I mean, I could see the writing on the wall. They just dropped, you know, a dozen, most of their presenters, and, you know, it's a financial issue. You know, I think I left at the right time. And we've seen this with many such, you know, Red Voice Media came out. Jason Burmas, who replaced me, he had a show on Red Voice Media. They cut him. They didn't have the money. What's your take on the podcasting space or the alternative media space? And, you know, it's a broader topic. You know, how has it changed? I see there's people who are, you know, there's controlled opposition. There's, you know, I'm sure intelligence has infiltrated. There's grifters, there's narcissists, there's people trying to do good work, but it's difficult in the environment. How have you seen it change in your opinion, and where do you see it going?
I will go into that, but when did you start Guadalajara podcast, Geopolitics and Empire? What year? Do you know?
I count from 2012 was when I started YouTubing, and then 2015 is when I formalized the actual podcast.
Yeah. So that's many years before me. I was 2018, but still in the Netherlands, and so that's my reference, right? Netherlands. Many channels came up in the Corona time. I also, Potkaars also, I went up tens of thousands of followers in a half a year until I was removed fully from YouTube because I talked to Rainer Fulmich. That was a mistake. You shouldn't talk to the big dissidents. You get removed from YouTube. By the way, I can say something about Fulmich later on in this talk maybe, as he's in prison, and a colleague of mine has visited him last Wednesday and has been to his court case today. But so there was a big alternative journalism scene coming up in the Corona crisis. Everybody was looking for information. Everybody was a journalist. And some of those, and I'm being blunt maybe, but some of those, the guys and the girls with the big egos, thought it was because of them and their genius. And money was coming in, and they were great, and they hired people, and they got the big cameras. I don't have the big cameras. This is just a curtain in my house. Back there's my garden. And once this talk is over, I open it up again and let the dog go out. That's what I do. I don't spend the big bucks, and I don't solicit the big audience. Some did, and they grew wildly until Corona was over, and the audience saw through that. And they're all in financial problems. Some quit because they're not real journalists, and the other ones with their big egos and the big money spending are in serious financial problems, to the point where in a worst case scenario this channel might be one of the few left in a year from now, because I don't do money. I don't spend anything, I don't make anything, but that's one way to keep going. But podcast scene in the Netherlands is individual journalism scene in the Netherlands has diminished. I want to also mention here the No Agenda show that's coming from the United States. Adam Curry and John C. Dvorak, who have a big audience, and the way they describe it, bigger than CNN, for instance. And they don't charge people for money. They just say, well, this is our value. We do the best we can. We do it twice a week. And if you like it, you can give us information back or other value back. And you can give the value in money. And that allows us to continue working. I think that's a good model. Just give value and trust the people to give that value back if it's valuable to them. I don't see that too much in the Netherlands. In the Netherlands, that's the egos and the people spending too much and they're going broke.
Yeah, that is fascinating. And if you want to tell us about Fulmich, because that also segues into my question after that, what's the case with, because he was down here in Mexico where I am, and what's happening. And I know there are mixed opinions. I honestly have to say I don't quite trust maybe some of the actions that he did, but you know how it is. We don't have all the details. I always forget her name. There was the blonde lady, and then in that team was Wolfgang Wodarg, who I knew about Wodarg since 2009. You know, when I was at the 62nd World Health Assembly, and they had the fake swine flu thing, and back then he was speaking out, so I kind of trust Wodarg. So I don't know what happened, but what's happening with Fulmich now?
Oh yeah, so Rainer Fulmich, I learned of him in the Corona crisis, like 2020. There was this PCR test, and he saw through that thing. And he is a lawyer that has taken big organizations to court, and he bragged about that in a podcast in an interview or a monologue that he did halfway through 2020. It got 1.5 million views. I saw that, and I reached out to him and I interviewed him. Mine was big also, and mine was the reason that my channel got deleted on Christmas Eve. So Potkaars is like a candle, right? A microphone with a little flame on it. It got blown out on Christmas Eve because of that interview. Now, what Fulmich aspired to do was do a massive global class action lawsuit. That's how he started against the PCR test and all the illegal measures. And one thing led to another, and he did his weekly interviews on Fridays, and he got massive amounts of donations. They got massive amounts of donations. And the Corona Auschwitz is the way they call it in Germany. It was supposed to be a foundation, I think, but it never was formalized, I think. But they got lots of money, and they had to put that somewhere safe. Now, where are we going to put that money? Because our bank accounts are going to getting closed. Move it to another bank account, or move it to a private account. What are we going to do? So he proposed, or they proposed, and they agreed in writing to buy some gold, and for him to invest it in his house that he was going to sell. So it's going to be in real estate for a while. And that's the way that money was parked. And then someone in his team, and I forgot the name also, the blonde lady that you mentioned, said, well, he took that money for himself. Now that claim was the reason that when he was renewing his passport in Mexico, he lost his passport, he went to an embassy, I believe it was in Mexico. He was put on a Lufthansa German aircraft, moved to Germany, and there he was arrested. So basically he was abducted. And he's been in German prison ever since. Now that statement that he stole money from the foundation has been retracted. So the lady said, no, I want to revise my statement. So there's lawsuits week after week in Germany now. A colleague of mine, Jamila Lepere, has been going to those for the last couple of weeks. And she's actually visited. So she ran into people that know Fulmich, and she said, well, I want to visit them. She said, well, come join us, come with us. You have to ask there with the court and then go to the prison there. And she did it, jumped through hoops. And then she talked to Fulmich last Wednesday on a visit, and said that, and she's going to make her own statements later on when we film that. But he's in good spirit, even though he's suffering. But he is in good spirit and very eager to continue his fight. But he is in isolation. And he only gets to talk to people, I believe, 3 times a month. Now in that lawsuit thing, it is too long a story to revisit that here. But that's German law. Which is as failing as the Dutch is. And I've seen the Dutch. I've filmed dozens of Dutch lawsuits. In the Netherlands, you can bring your cameras to the courtroom if you jump through hoops, which I'm doing. So I've seen the Dutch system fail up close. In Germany, you're not allowed to film it, and she wasn't even allowed to bring electronica or whatever into courtrooms. So that's Fulmich. He's still in jail. I have not been updated on the session today, but there will be a verdict, I think, within the next couple of weeks. And I don't, well, that's all I can say. I think he might lose, but he will win an appeal. But he'll be in jail for the next couple of months. That's my summary.
Well, and just on that theme, let me ask you, because this is related to what you mentioned earlier about what's happening across the West, because you've got CJ Hopkins, also in Germany. He's been a guest twice on my podcast. He, just for criticizing the health minister, they want to put him in jail for a couple months, and he won his court case, but the German government's like, no, we're going to do it again. So you've got him, and then you've got Kim.com to be extradited. You've got Scott Ritter, who's also past guest of mine on the podcast. The FBI raiding his home. Richard Medhurst in the UK, treated like a terrorist, arrested. And so just all of a sudden, this is happening. And, you know, what I was mentioning to you last month, and I knew that this was not some random person, because now the pattern has formed. There's some strange website called Eyes of the Republic, and it seems like a cutout for spooks for a military operation. It's so clear. And then there's a few other Twitter accounts that are working with this guy, and he started making all these connections between alternative media and podcasters to make us look like we are Russian agents. And maybe some of those guys are connected. I'm not. But he did an entire write-up and was tweeting all the time photos of me and saying I'm a alleging I'm a Russian agent. And at the same time, you have what's happening to Scott Ritter, Jonathan Turley, who's this well-known American lawyer. NewsGuard went after him. NewsGuard is a front for Pentagon NSA. And now the New York Times article was published just yesterday saying U.S. is investigating Americans who worked with Russian state television, and it said that Russia's exploiting witting and unwitting Americans to create and spread narratives that were favorable to the government of Putin, that these personalities post content on social media, write for various websites with overt and covert ties to the Russian government. So de facto, right there, when this New York Times article came out, I'm like, okay, so this was all, it's clear now, this was a coordinated effort. New York Times, NewsGuard, raiding the houses of Scott Ritter and Dmitry Simes. He's the son of he's a Russian-American, commentator. His home got raided also by the FBI. This website writing about me, and it's just like, it's clear. Now, again, the state... So what are your thoughts on where we are in the West and the UK stuff? You saw like Keir Starmer saying we're rolling out facial recognition. They're arresting 60-year-old grandmas for thought crime. What's going on, Rico?
It's funny that I was in London a couple of times leading up to the release of Julian Assange. So there are protests in Parliament Square. And I was at Belmarsh prison, and one of the last times that I was there, I was with Jamila, who's now doing the Fulmich case. And at customs, they asked us, "Oh, what are you going to do?" My answer would be, "Well, we're tourists. We're going to see London." That's my safe answer. But she surprised me and said, "No, we're going to go to the Julian Assange rally. It's on Parliament Square because this and that," and she went out of her way to sound controversial. I said, "Why?" Afterwards, I said, "Why did you do that?" I mean, I was uncomfortable. So, well, let's see what happens. I mean, this is coming. How's customs going to, or the border control going to respond if you say that? There was no response at all. We had a nice chat and we were allowed in. I wonder when that changes. I wonder if I'm getting second checks now, like a year later, that I didn't get then. But things are changing fast. Now the Kim.com case. So Kim.com built. He's a skilled IT professional, right? When he builds something, he tends to make it big, and a mega upload and mega. He built the systems where you could share whatever content and nobody would know, including him, what was on there. Now the copyright industry has been after him ever since, and they wanted to extradite him. He's now living in New Zealand, and they've been wanted to extradite him ever since. So this was bound to come to a close sometime. But right now, like a couple of weeks ago, or just this week, a little while back, the extradition order was signed by the minister in New Zealand. So Kim is now to be extradited to the United States. That is, I did not see that coming. At the same time, when you report on Gaza, on the Israel conflict, there was Richard Medhurst, I think, or Scott Ritter, who is vocal on the Ukraine-Russia situation. These guys are attacked. But even if you're now in United Kingdom, in London, if you dare to retweet something or like something, it reminded me of the Corona time, where in Australia, Victoria, in Melbourne, that was the harshest regime globally, maybe even. In retrospect, I feel that back then in Australia, they were testing how far they would be able to go. And Australia, in my fantasy, I like to stick to the facts, but this is just hypothesize. Maybe Australia went all the way and tried how far they could go. The Netherlands did that also. We had a curfew. A curfew, that's a war measure. A curfew doesn't work against a virus. I mean, after 9 p.m., nobody's on the streets anyway. You're not going to stop a virus with a curfew. But you were arrested if you're out walking your dog after 9 with me and my wife together. I had to do it by myself. Otherwise, you'd be arrested. I feel in retrospect, there was a plan going on. Australia volunteered to do their part. The Dutch volunteered to do their part. And right now, the United Kingdom is doing their part. And they're arresting people for retweeting and liking. This is a new level of stifling free speech. Is the UK going to allow it? Well, the people are. I keep forgetting the new prime minister's name. They're changing them to Keith Sturmer. What's the guy's name?
Keir Jong-un. No, Keir Stalin. Adolf Starmer.
Exactly. So who is that guy? Also on that topic, do you know who's the prime minister in the Netherlands right now? The guy is called Dick Schoof. Like the Mike Pompeo of the Netherlands.
Wasn't he former security?
Yeah. The Secret Service chief. Nobody voted for him. Nobody knew him. And I'm sure if there was a popular vote, no one would vote for him. What the Dutch did, the Dutch are stupid. So and we will talk about Paraguay maybe also later in this talk. I consider the Dutch, I'm not so hopeful for the Dutch. So they see what's going on in the Corona time and all the fraudulent stuff. And then the Dutch go, we want to protest also. But we don't want to vote on that dirty extreme right party Forum for Democracy. I mean, they're on TV all the time that they're bad, so we don't want to do that. We want to vote for the cool protest parties that are coming up, like the PVV, the farmers and the civilian movement. Well, I'm trying to translate it, but it is called BBB. They're abbreviated, it's Build Back Better. We have a party on that. And everybody started to vote for that. Oh, they're for the farmers. Cool. We'll vote for them. So you have the PVV, you have the BBB, and the New Social Contract Party also. Now, New Social Contract, that's right out of Klaus Schwab's playbook. So we have a political party named like that. And people thought, oh, those three, we're going to vote for those. Those are the opposition. Well, once elected, they chose our new prime minister, Mr. Dick Schoof, that nobody ever heard of, who's the former chief of our Secret Service. How about that, Ravoye?
Well, I mean, again, it feels like the Western governments I mean, all governments, but we're talking about the West in particular, they're positioning for something that's coming. And just again, freedoms in the West, it's like many of us for 20 years, I've been waiting for this moment to come. You know, in the early 2000s, I started calling the US the United Soviet States of America. That's one of the reasons I left in 2006. And it's, you know, if you understand what happened in the past, where we are, you can sort of extrapolate the trends. And many of us have been accurate, and it's here now. And, you know, it's getting worse, you know, and I don't know what, we're all doing what we can, but I don't like to sugarcoat things. It's getting bad. It's bad, and it keeps getting bad. And just your further thoughts. I mean, we are descending into this brave new world, 1984 totalitarianism, and people are relocating. I know you have looked at Paraguay. Some of my listeners have been to Paraguay. They've told me about it. Some folks go to Uruguay, some are in Mexico, others are, I don't know, in Thailand. So people are going to different places. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, cool. That's two questions, the way I understand it. One is what's going on with the 1984ing that we're going through. Well, there's tremendous amount of hope also. I mean, we learn immediately of Kim.com and of the other guys. We have Assange been released now, and we see the fraud immediately. Whereas when 9/11 happened, or when the financial crisis happened, or when Snowden happened, or all those things happened, it took longer. I talked to John Kiriakou, the former CIA specialist, who told us about waterboarding on Guantanamo Bay. And he said, in Congress, everybody knew that there were no weapons of mass destruction. But it took years for me to learn. I mean, I was watching my CNN. I thought, oh, well, bad guys in Iraq. Right now, it takes a couple of hours before the bullshit coming out of mainstream media is deconstructed, and we know that it's a false narrative. They're not able to do their false narratives anymore. Bellingcat was demasked, exposed. They did everything through their Bellingcat. We know now that they're being paid by the Atlantic Council, and their information was false. Now nobody hears about Bellingcat anymore, and they're trying to build new outfits like the one that's now harassing you. That's not going to last long.
That's a good point. Eyes of the Republic. And I just noticed, because just to backtrack, I had a few times where I tweeted something, or I quote tweeted Bellingcat, or what's his, Elliot Higgins is his name?
Yeah.
And he, like, immediately he commented on my tweet. And I'm like, well, first of all, I mean, that's strange, because there must be, because again, he's plugged into the Atlantic Council NATO military intelligence operation, 77th Brigade, and there must be some way where they monitor in real time, where he gets a notification and it's either him or someone in his name, you know, commenting. I don't know how they can with such immediacy respond, you know, because it's the war is now in the information space. And now I see them in alternative media. They're trying to come in and remake themselves, and you know, come in alongside us podcasters in alternative media. And I'm seeing factions in alternative media that are clearly from the security state. And they often focus on, like, their focus is on, their hawks on Russia and China and Iran. And they never talk about the corrupt oligarchic globalism
exactly
in the West. And I've been to some of these conferences where these speakers, probably some of my guests are of that ilk as well. But it's just like, for people like myself, it's just when you're seasoned and discerning, it's just like, you're so obvious, guys. Like, I can smell you from a mile away. I know that you're a cutout for
so that's tremendously hopeful.
You can't fool me. Like this Eyes of the Republic. And so that's how they're coming in now, and they're trying to sneak in through the back door, because they have to remake themselves. As you say, Bellingcat has become so obvious, and they're like, okay, let's try this again.
Yeah. So, I started this talk with making compliments for you being knowledgeable and with all your experience, and to a certain extent it goes for me as well. And we're just a few. But if we see through that immediately, the masses are picking up on it also. There's a big change coming, and that's going to be hockey sticking also. So it's going to go slow first. That's where we are. But the public awareness of the bullshitting that's taking place, that's going to hockey stick also. So there's tremendous amount of hope in this time also. But the powers that be are not going to give up willingly. And both you and me, we don't know how deep the rot goes. We still don't know who it is behind the scenes. And when we go to that discussion, we end up with the Rockefellers and the bankers and the JP Morgans and the big banking families and the City of London and all that. But we don't know. We can't name them just yet. So we might be in for some surprises also.
Come on, Rico. It's the Jews. that was sarcasm. I'm being joking. I don't believe that, but it's for the listeners who leave me those comments. I've touched on this before.
I'll go to Paraguay in a moment, but proverbially speaking. But let's talk Russia for a moment. So in the Netherlands, there's a very small outfit protesting peace, advocating peace on Dam Square. So in Amsterdam, in the middle of Amsterdam, in front of a war monument, they have their monthly peace protest. And they advocate. There's a little fly here. It's annoying. You see me squatting the thing.
Maybe it's one of those Pentagon
could be
mechanized
drones.
You know.
Yeah. So these guys are doing their peace protests partly out of anger, and I joined up with them a while back. But I had so they asked me if I wanted to be a public speaker or I want to do some songs on stage. I said, yeah, I want to do that, but I'm not going to do that in front of either Palestinian or Israeli flags. I'm not going to do that for Russian or Ukraine flags. I mean, what are we going to do? All nationalities there? Are we going to be Olympic Games flags parade? We only need one kind of a flag, and that's a peace flag. Then you'll have me on stage. So they did that for a while. We had the doves and the peace flags up there. And I did my speeches on the stage, and I did some peace songs. I was the protest singer that I set out to be in 2017 on Dam Square, on a very small outfit. But that thing made the mainstream media newspapers as being a pro-Russian outfit financed by the Kremlin. Pretty much the same criticism that you're getting. Now, I know these guys. They don't have any money. They're buying their diesel generator with their own money and their little tent that's blowing away. Nobody's making any money from whatever outfit. They're just with themselves and not getting any traction in the Netherlands. And sadly, they've given up on the peace flags, and then now they're doing both the Ukrainian flags and the Russian flags, coming from their anger, I think. I don't think that's a good way, so I'm not playing my songs on that stage anymore. But they've been harassed also as being a Russian outfit. Now, the political party I just mentioned as being the only somewhat opposition party in the Netherlands, Forum for Democracy, they've been called Russian-financed outfit also, to the point where they might be forbidden in the Netherlands as a political party because their alleged Russian connection, which I don't know if it exists or not. I've not been attacked in that manner just yet. I would love to interview at least the Russian ambassador in the Netherlands. And I tried to do that when the Ukraine conflict started, and it didn't work out then. But currently I would, but Lavrov, or Voye, if you have Lavrov in your Rolodex, I would really like to interview. I would go to Moscow to talk to that guy. That would be a great, seriously. And if you're watching, that I would really like to do. And screw everybody that says I'm a Russian outfit. That would be interesting, no?
Well, I don't think that would ever. I've never seen him on a podcast, but it was 2 years ago when I had on Thierry Baudet, right?
Yeah. That's from Form of Democracy.
My interview with him made national Dutch news.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember, like national Dutch papers were attacking him, and they were saying for his appearance on Geopolitics and Empire. I made international news. The Le Monde, the French Le Monde, did a piece, and it said Thierry Baudet on Geopolitics and Empire. And then I got some Dutch media requests for permission to use that podcast in their
Exactly.
documentaries or films because they were going to do hit pieces. And so it's kind of fun. And it goes back to what you're saying. I'm just one little guy, and I'm a one man skeleton crew revolution, and the fact that just little old me can become that dangerous for the global deep state. I mean, I feel proud in that sense. You know, my Bob Moriarty, one of my past guests, he calls it a virtual Purple Heart. But then your thoughts on, you know, I don't think it's for everyone. The people are strategic relocation. People are thinking of escaping.
Okay.
Sometimes it's better just to stay where you are. My life, before all of this stuff, my life has been one of just traveling the world, and I ended up in Mexico, and I'm happy here. But thoughts on, seriously, if you're considering like going to Paraguay or Croatia? You told me you visited my home of Croatia. You know, would that be a good? How was Croatia? And your thoughts on if the grass is greener?
Yeah, exactly. That's what it is. So I'm in the Netherlands, which is in the European Union, and if we're to leave this jurisdiction for security reasons, I feel we need to leave the European Union. So that's a very short answer to Croatia. And there's people moving currently or investigating Portugal or Spain, Hungary. I don't know about Croatia, but anything rural would be better than the big cities if you're going for the doom scenarios. Well, Netherlands is densely populated. We're one big city. So Portugal or Spain or Croatia would always be better than the Netherlands in that respect. But if I'm going to move, I'm going to move a family, and I'm not prepared to do that inside European Union. That's only solving half the that's not real, and that's not solving the root cause. So that's my answer for Croatia. I love the country, though it's too hot in the summer. People were friendly. It was the roads were good for not so densely populated country. So good infrastructure. We saw the waterfalls. It was beautiful as a tourist location. Fantastic country. But I wouldn't. What I'm going to do there? I mean, you have your roots there. Obviously, you're Croatian. I will talk about Paraguay and the rest of the world. But before that, I think we need to do something else. I just came up with that. I think. Oh man, I'm so prepared. So, a couple of years back, inside the Corona crisis, I did a lot of interviews with Jeroen Pols, Willem Engel. You also talked to Willem Engel, and Willem's brother Jan Engel. Now, Jeroen and Jan were involved with a campsite, a big piece of land in the south of the Netherlands that was stolen by the municipality that was in. They raided that thing. They said, you're not allowed in anymore. We're going to take it over. And that was years back. And now recently it was auctioned and sold to a hidden bidder. It was exposed that that municipality, that city bought it themselves. So the expropriation, the stealing of the land has come to a conclusion. It's now been stolen. They're left with nothing but an empty bag, and they're still in court over this, to the highest court instances that we have, the Raad van State. That's why I bought this T-shirt. I don't know if you can make it up. It says, and there will be justice. People are calling for tribunals in the Netherlands, and if you do that, if you call for tribunals, you'll be arrested for incitement. I'm not going to call for tribunals. I'm calling for justice. So there will be justice. That's why I'm wearing this T-shirt now. But I filmed many of their court cases, but they were stolen out of their land. And I connected to these guys in 2020 when the Corona crisis started. Learned of their case. And they got the full force of the Dutch government against them, to the point where bank accounts were closed, arrests, raids in their homes. Also in the German home, they have some property in Germany that was raided. And they lose everything in court. The court system is broken. I filmed them. I mean, you have to learn Dutch. That might be a bit of a hassle, but if you can review all those court sessions, I filmed them in whole. Now those guys figured we need to leave the Netherlands. If we stay here, we're going to end up in jail with nothing, and we have families. So those guys started to look around and say, where in the world would be a nice place to land? Now Europe is out. I just explained that. The European Union is broken. We can talk European Union, but that is jurisdiction you want to move out of. A friend of mine is moving to South Africa later this year. As in moving, as in unregistering, as being living in the Netherlands and then starting to live there, which is kind of a bold move, because to be able to live in South Africa, you have to have a permanent residence, I think. But you can't have that unless you're very wealthy, and that's a bit of a problem there. So some people from the Netherlands decide to go there and then just move out of South Africa every 3 or 6 months and then renew their tourist visa. That's not an option for me. I'm not going to South Africa. Now, I'm not a linguist. My English is okay. My Dutch is good. I'm learning Spanish, and that's it's not not a difficult language, but it's a hassle. With Spanish, I can master. I'm not going to go to Russia or China or anything Asia. I'm too old for that. So that's out. And also the cultural difference is too big, I feel. So Asia is out. Yeah, Australia and New Zealand are out. I mean, Kim.com is going to be extradited. That's not going to work. Canada, we've seen the trucker protest. We've seen all the policies coming out of Canada. That's not an option, and nor is the United States. Africa might be good, but also I'm not that. That's hard. I don't feel Africa is something I would seriously consider unless, well, if you need to run, you run. So that brings us to South America. And these guys, and they also have some real estate in Germany. And now Hohenau is a place in the south of Paraguay. If you talk to old people in Hohenau, they would say, yeah, Hitler came here. After and then he left to flee to Argentina, I think, to spend his days there. So that's a German enclave. That's a German community there. And the Dutch, Jan Engel and Jeroen Pols, hooked up with some Germans with their real estate project, and decided to investigate Paraguay, see if that's a nice place to go. Now, if you want to go somewhere, you need a permit, right? You need to be able to stay there. I have not investigated Mexico, but what do you know the hoops I need to jump through to have a permanent resident in Mexico? Do you know?
Yeah, well, just before that, I know it's counterintuitive for some of the advice given by the internationalization gurus out there in the Plan B stuff, that you don't want to be a citizen of the country that you're living in, because then the government has less control over you. But especially if you have a family and stuff, and I'm just tired of dealing with, after what I've had to deal with Kazakhstan and traveling to Russia and other places. I hate paperwork, and I don't want to live anymore in a country where, if I don't at least have permanent residency or citizenship, because anything can happen. And I'm a Mexican citizen. It's just like I have certain rights, and they can't just say we're deporting you tomorrow. And I actually prefer doing that. Maybe others don't, but I'd rather be a citizen of the country that I'm living in. But it's good to have multiple citizenships, because that sort of gives you then some buffer and other options. For Mexico, it shouldn't be too difficult. They're making it harder. And I think this is a global trend. I interviewed Todd Miller in 2021, I think it was. He wrote a book on the border industrial complex. And he said, he's an expert on the borders. He goes to these expos, and he said there's a scaffolding where the US is the model and the EU, and the US is assisting all other countries. They've got offices all over the world where they're helping all other countries to create these strict totalitarian biosecurity exit and entry systems. And so that's why that explains why even Mexico now, I heard from an American the other day, he flies in 6 months on a tourist visa, goes back for a week and comes back again to Mexico. They've raised the requirements. So you have to, I don't know the details, but when I came in, it was much lower, much easier. But now to become a temporary resident in Mexico, I think you have to show an income, a certain income, maybe like you make 50,000 a year or something like that. It didn't used to be like that, but I'd recommend it too, Rico, and for people out there. And there's a low physical requirement, like when you get the Mexican residency visa, you don't really have to be here much at all, if at all, once you start the process. So you get the 1 year temporary residency that renews, I think, for like 4 years, and then you get permanent residency for the rest of your life. You can come and go, you can buy property, you can stay, and then that eventually gets you Mexican citizenship. So, yeah.
Now, South America does not particularly appeal to me. I mean, what I know of it is every country has gone through massive inflation, has gone through revolutions, has gone through uprisings and unsafe situations. So the entire South American continent is not particularly appealing to me. So this is and I apologize to everybody who knows their history. This is just my prejudice. Except for that very small part in the middle that's very boring, very poor. Nothing ever happens there. It's called Paraguay. They're getting their energy from a water-powered plant. So they have kind of free energy. And they have a very low tax regime. Now, what Jeroen Pols, one of the Dutch guys, says to summarize their tax regime is, well, if you don't collect too much tax, you don't have a big government. And the government may try certain things there in Paraguay, like every government in the world is. And we have a global problem. We can point to Putin, we can point to Dick Schoof in the Netherlands, or we can point to everybody. Paraguay is no different. But there, in Paraguay, things fail. I mean, the government is small and they don't get anything going. It's a cash-driven society, so they can do their CBDC. It's not going to work. Most of those government policies are not going to work. So that's an ideal situation to ride out whatever storm is coming. I think he has a strong point there. Another advantage of Paraguay, apart from it being boring and not making headlines, is that it's easy to get a permanent resident, cedula. What's the English word? So
permanent residence.
Yeah, permanent residence. It just costs you some money. You have to go there, and you have to go there once a year to refresh it, but you have your permanent residence. So that's the reason when there was momentum in my family that I said, okay, let's go now. And that's the day that I booked my tickets and I went there with my son for a short while just to check out the country. Now, there's lots of disadvantages also, and we're not moving just yet. One of the disadvantages is this. So there's dozens of Dutch guys going to Paraguay currently. There's a big Dutch community moving there and actually there right now. But they're all making their money, or they have lots of money, and that keeps you alive, or they're making their money abroad. Well, you're making your money abroad also, Voye. I mean, I don't know how many Mexican sponsors you have, but you're collecting your money through the internet. If internet goes down, or whatever limits are imposed, you start selling tacos. That's your plan B. All these Dutch guys in Paraguay are making their money abroad. Now that doesn't sound like a plan B. I mean, if I'm preparing for all hell breaks loose, I need to make my living from the local economy. So I started looking for Dutch guys who are actually doing that, and I found one. And preparing for this conversation with you, I talked to him this morning and asked him, so how's that going? And he's actually managed to get himself a company and to start making his money in the local economy. But that's just the one that has managed, or that's actually has a plan and is actually doing it. All the other ones are living there and they're doing okay, but they're making the money abroad through the internet. That I don't. So I'm chewing on that still. I'm not moving. We have a job here, we have kids in school here, we have a life here, we have a house here, we have our roots here. And also, I'm not giving up. I mean, I went into politics to fix the system. I'm not going away. I'm making this song to fix the system. And I understand why Jeroen and Jan are leaving. I mean, they fought, they were robbed of their land through crimes committed by government. So they're a few steps ahead of me. I've not undergone that myself. So I've seen Paraguay. I've seen the people. I've never been to Mexico, so I can't say. But people in Paraguay, they're friendly, and they're relaxed, and they're open. It feels safe. Now, I was on vacation in Sweden this summer. Now, in a big supermarket in Sweden, everything's safe, everything's secure, everything's nice. Nobody's looking at each other. Nobody's talking to each other. There's no contact. There's no humanity there. Paraguay there is. There's an old guy coming up to you and say, oh, you're a tourist. Well, you have to learn Spanish or some of the local language. Otherwise, you're not. And that was a very friendly conversation. But he was going to tell us what we needed to do to be there. Just an old guy in a supermarket. Unimaginable to have that talk in Sweden. So Paraguay is a way more healthy society than the rich European is. So for the time being, I'm still here. Long story short.
I hope that provided a lot of valuable insight for listeners, and you brought up some good points, some that I didn't think of. But the last thing you said, I can't tell you how many Europeans that I've met either in person or virtually, that from Netherlands, from, I don't know, Sweden, Norway, Denmark, who said the exact same thing, that it's like a brave new world in Europe. You know, it's this socialist, totalitarian, collectivist Borg system where the soul has been sucked out. And there was a guy that I knew who had a security incident in Mexico. He fled back to Europe, and then he was like, no, it's so horrible here, like what you just described. And he ended up coming back to Mexico, and others that I've met. And so that's an important point. And as you say, you haven't, those friends that have felt the full boot on their face of the Dutch government, they've gone all the way. And it's just like, in that case, it's like, we're out of here. And in your case, it makes sense, yeah, like for you to still stay. And I've had people who've asked me, look, if you're still in a good situation wherever you are in Canada or US, maybe just stay where you are. But other people, again, it depends on your individual variables. If you're younger, or you got money, or if you're just you don't have kids, if you can relocate easier, then go ahead. Maybe go to somewhere in Latin America. And there's I've mentioned this before. There's a Croatian podcast called Projekt Velebit. They interviewed this guy called Vedran Bajun recently. I think I sent you a comment about him. He married a Colombian. He's a Croatian. He served in the war, and he ended up in Colombia. He lives in a hacienda, and he said he thought Latin America was one of the better locations because it's removed from potential war, lower cost of living, more family culture. And let me ask you then about war, because you've had many guests on, Martin Armstrong, Alfred Isaias. I think, have you interviewed Kees Vanderpeel, who's great? World War III, what are your thoughts? I think they're going to eventually take us to war. What do you make of the situation in Europe with Ukraine, Gaza, Iran, and Taiwan, China, and all that?
Going back to school, learning about the system, I ran also into Gerald Celente, and he calls himself a trend forecaster. And his quote comes to mind. He said, when all else fails, they'll take you to war. And I agree. They will take us to war. That's the only way to reset the system and still be in control, still be in power. So whoever is losing their grip now, they will try to take us to war. I was in a political debate not too long ago. There was European Union elections. I was at a other podcast thing here in the city where I live, and the host said, "Oh, you want to join in?" Yeah. I ended up on the table, cameras on my face, talking to the other politician people. I was not busy. I was just a journalist. But there was this lady of the Dutch governing party, the VVD, and she went, Putin, 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 Putin bad. And I go, well, we can talk about the Ukraine conflict, but it really started when the European Union overplayed their hand in the trade conflict, and Ukraine had to choose either to trade with Russia or with Europe, and they chose the bigger trading partner, which was Russia. And then Victoria Nuland told us that the United States invested billions of dollars in regime change, and that's where it all started. She had no clue. So people have lost their historic perspective on where that conflict came from. And I loved the Putin interview where he said, "Well, okay, give me 20 minutes. I'll just rerun a bit of history on the Ukraine conflict." Not too long ago, there's way more stuff going on there than that's being shown on the television. However, so I can. This is my disclaimer. I make disclaimers also. Russia should not have gone into Ukraine, in my opinion. That's you don't do that. Whatever is the consequence, you cannot go across the country lines of a different country. So I feel Russia was at fault there. However, as Alfred de Zaya said, it was provoked. And Jens Stoltenberg said, "You want less NATO? Oh, I have news for you. You're going to get more NATO." Russia proposed made peace proposals. They were dismissed. Obviously, Russia had to do something, but it was provoked, and that's how the conflict started. Now, if Russia wanted to, they could have fixed that conflict within a month or a couple of months. And at first, they surrounded Kiev. I think as part of their bluff poker. So, well, we can wipe you off the maps, comply. And they failed there, and then they retracted. And then ever since, for years now, they're grinding slowly in Donbass and that region. I don't buy that. I do not buy Russia moving ever so slowly, prolonging this war year after year. I can only imagine that the agenda of Russia is to prolong a conflict. Okay, but then Russia is in on the same agenda as NATO is. War. Russia is working on their CBDC, as is Paraguay, as is everybody else. So there's an agenda there that makes me very uncomfortable. I don't trust Russia any more than any of the other countries. I like that they gave Snowden asylum, though. That was a cool move. So that was cool, and also that they stand up for the people in Crimea who voted to be part of Russia and the people in Donbass. So I believe Russia is sticking up for Russia and for people close to them, like the Russian-speaking people on the east side of Ukraine. But there's more to that conflict than just that. If Russia had wanted to, they had fixed that conflict in the first year. They didn't. So there's an agenda there for them to prolong the conflict, which makes me very uncomfortable. Now, I think if it's Putin or his administration or whatever, they're making a brilliant move over the last years in reducing their state debt. Russia is one of the least indebted countries in the world. Now, I feel it's a financial problem is the bottom line. Now, if you cannot be blackmailed through your state debt by the Bank of International Settlements or the big bankers or whoever is doing it, that gives you a tremendous position of power. Those would be the questions I would like to ask Lavrov if I ever talk. Now, he's never going to talk to me after saying this. But Russia almost has no state debt. So that's a brilliant move of Russia over the last couple of years. Remove that. And then they're starting their BRICS. Now, the BRICS are starting to build a currency also. They said they were going to link that to the value of gold. That's a smart move. But all those countries are doing the same policies as all the other countries. China is up into its neck into debt and into Bank of International Settlements constructions like all the other countries. So I don't see any hope in BRICS. They're playing along, but they're trying to position their country the best they can for the best outcome for their individual position of power. Now, in that playing field, European Union is the loser, I feel. What do we have? We have Ursula von der Leyen, the Queen of Europe. That's not going to work. See, as though, Putin and Xi must be laughing at what the EU is, and also must have been laughing at Biden. Or are they? Or how much is everybody in on it? I haven't a clue. Now, Trump says, I'm jumping through all your interviews now, yeah? Trump says Elon Musk is going to be on his administration. Trump says RFK Jr. is going to be on his administration. Musk is big corporate. He is Tesla. He is SpaceX. He is the industry. Well, that's what Mussolini did, no? Like merger of state and that's what we call fascism. That's where it sprung from. So that doesn't, I don't trust Musk as any more than any of the other guys. RFK Jr. I have some doubts on. I read his book on Fauci. That was cool. So he did some, what's it called? The Children's Defense Organization.
Children's Health Defense,
yeah. That's very good. So I would love to see him in control of healthcare in the United States. That would help. But that doesn't mean I trust him. Now, the Israeli conflict with Gaza, I believe it's a genocide. I don't know what I can believe on TV, but I believe it's a genocide. Gaza is being killed. Now, the hopeful on a global scale there. I mean, I feel for people in Ukraine on the left and on the right side. I feel for people in Palestine. I feel for the Israelis. But on a global scale, the hopeful thing is they're not getting their war just yet. I mean, Ukraine is invading Kursk region. And Putin goes, I'm going to hurt you. But he's like this. He's not doing anything. An oil train boat was sunk yesterday or something. Nothing's happening. Nuclear power plants are being attacked. Russia's just biding their time. They're not giving them their war. If they're giving them their war, it's going to be after the elections. That's my feeling there. And the same goes with Iran. I mean, an assassination is taking place in the capital of Iran. And they say, we're going to strike you back. And then they're biding their time. I don't think there's going to be war anytime soon because that's what NATO's, the powers that be apparently want. And Xi, Putin, Iran, they're not giving them their war. That's my take, Ovoye.
Yeah, and from what you just said, that was a great insight. But I think very honest, and I'd agree with you. For me, an important point is that there really are no good guys. There are just interests. I can't remember the exact quote. I think it was Kissinger who said something along those lines, that it's all just interests. And I don't trust any politician. I don't trust Lopez Obrador. I don't trust, any of my American politicians or my Croatian or Putin or Xi or you name it. For me, they answer to the interests above them first before the people. And I always say it's a spectrum where some of them are maybe slightly more humane than others, and others are more psychopathic than others. I use AMLO, the Mexican president, as an example. He's a globalist. He said it himself. There's a photo with him and Jeremy Corbyn in 2016 that he tweeted, and AMLO's like, yeah, Jeremy Corbyn and I, we want world government. AMLO's like, over and over, he's like, we need to integrate Canada, USA, and Mexico on the EU model. De facto globalist. But he's more humane, I argue, because he's fought for the energy sovereignty of Mexico, anti-GMO, a little more independence. So versus some of the people you've mentioned, Frau Ursula Gertrude von der Leyen, who's like, inject the citizenry, lock them down, and those are like the Justin Trudeau's, the von der Leyens, the Starmers, the Jacinda Arderns, the in Victoria in Australia, Dan, I forget his last name, Dictator Dan. Those are like examples of psychopaths. So I think they're all globalists, but there's a spectrum of, and as you say, in Russia, I mean, we cannot deny they're running the same sort of dystopian state. There are Russian patriots who are in jail. now. People get arrested for dissent in Russia. There's a corrupt oligarchy that runs the economy, just the same everywhere else. So let's stop pretending, please. And you mentioned CBDCs. I want to ask you about the whole your thoughts on the Great Reset stuff. This is about my algorithm ghetto. That's my biggest thing. The digital IDs, as you said, they're coming in everywhere. How do you just sort of see that playing out? I mean, recently we saw Biden administration wants to accelerate digital IDs in Europe. They're accelerating it. I heard from someone in the Netherlands recently who said it's like 80% cashless already in the Netherlands. There's many places that just don't take cash anymore. My recent guest, Nikola Mikovic, who was in China, he said pretty much it's all QR codes and phone payment apps. You can't really survive without it. And so how do you see the whole Great Reset CBDC digital ID project going?
I'll go to that. Respond to what you just mentioned first. The psychopath thing. I took it up on myself to follow the DNC, the Democratic National Convention, and see some of the speeches there.
Oh, I feel for you.
Oh well, no, it was very educational. I had fun doing that to a certain extent. I noticed that all the big media outlets only publish snippets, like fragments, like a 30-second thing of this, 30-second thing of that. Only the cool quotes. I am not interested in the cool quotes. I want to see the entire presentation of Obama or of Clinton. So one of the first full things that I found was Hillary Clinton on a late night show, the night before the convention started or something. Now we know Hillary Clinton. We know her track record. We know what she's done. Talk about psychopaths. Now I see her as a very friendly, you have to like her, elderly lady. She's very likable. You don't even see anything in her eyes that would set you off. The same with the drone king, Barack Obama. Nobody's killed so many people abroad as, and by the way, under Obama, they went after Snowden. And then I saw Joe Biden's speech. And I'm going, oh, wait a minute. I've seen Joe Biden against Trump. I believe that was the true Joe Biden, so he's not dead. But the guy at the DNC, that's not the same person that was debating Trump. It is not the same human being. And when you see the Biden filmed from behind, the back of his head, looking at him in front with the beady eyes, that, okay, there's a resemblance. I don't know how deep the rot goes, but I feel that was a stand-in. So it was very, very educational. I liked seeing that. And also later in this talk, maybe we should talk about Trump and the assassination attempt on him. We might have different opinions on that one. But on CBDC, I know you're of the opinion, I think I know you're of the opinion that Bitcoin is a CIA project, right?
It's my suspicion. Again, I always state the case that I've got theses, different like scenarios, and I could over time change my opinions. But with Bitcoin, I'm of the view that it's from them, whoever them is.
Now, I've interviewed many whistleblowers over the last couple of years, and however hard you try to hide your source or hide yourself, if they want to find you, they're going to find you. Most of them have been found. Sources for journalists also. Now, Satoshi Nakamoto managed to escape all of them. The white paper writing person or group. Oh, that's an achievement. So nobody except him manages to elude the services in the United States. So that's a giveaway. Let's say it's created by United States government, by CIA. Let's say that's the case. So what? What's the disadvantage? Can't we use it as a tool for ourselves then? They may have created it. Can't we use it for good? Or should we abandon it and leave it there because it was created by the wrong people? What's your view on that?
I mean, our argument there that immediately sprouts to mind is DARPA created the internet that we're using now.
Exactly.
They created GPS that we all use to go to our friends' homes on the or meet with our friends for dinner on the other side of town, and so on. And we created Facebook, right? That is making the lives of people wonderful, sharing photos and friends and family stuff.
Well,
so
Facebook, leaving Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp was of my own choosing. I was never censored there. I decided if the behavior of people is the money-making machine, then I'm not going to be there. So I have no presence there. But I can imagine this was instigated for the wrong reasons by the wrong people. But it's a tool, like the internet. This was very. Thank you for that. Like the internet, use it for our purposes, for good. Sweden is very much cashless. Everything goes there by card, even our app. So I'll continue answering the question, but I like this conversation. So this is my new phone. It's a Graphene OS phone. So this would be the Snowden phone, right? You buy a Google Pixel. That's the only hardware that it runs on. And then you...
Yeah, and I've got to plug the Google Graphene OS.
Oh, you have a Graphene also? Okay.
Above phone, so yeah.
There you go. The reason is, it's not that I feel I'm being listened on, but sometimes people reach out to me and I don't want to be the person with malware on it. So I'm trying to be secure for that reason. So you need an app in Sweden to park your car. So you park your car, you go to this thing for paying the parking fee, and they say download the app. So I'm the coward that says, I can't do this. So my family, my wife goes try that. Takes them like 45 minutes to get the thing going. You can't put coins in the meter anymore in Sweden.
It's the same thing here where I am, and it kills me. When I first came to Guadalajara, it was the coins. And now when you go downtown, there were a number of times where I just say to heck with it, and I just park and I don't pay parking, or I'll go somewhere more out of the way where you don't have to pay, or go to a parking lot where you can pay in cash, because I've tried. It's been a long while, but when I download the app and I put in my credit card and it doesn't work.
It doesn't work. Exactly.
Like they put you in a position where you can't even do it.
There you go. But you can't pay for your food. You can't pay for anything. But they're turning cashless regardless. And the people are complying. Oh, and also you can't buy alcohol in Sweden. You have to go to a special state liquor store, which is nowhere. I mean, it's one big countryside thing, so they're nowhere there. So I had some issues with Sweden on the vacation. The Netherlands is not there yet. I wrote to our central bank a couple of years ago. I think it was 2015 or so. Who manages the number of cash machines that we have on our streets in our cities, because they were taken out of operation. There were less and less places where you could get cash. And central bank replied very decently. There was a very nice letter I got back. So nobody does. So it's the commercial banks that make things up for themselves. So nobody checks on that. I also had a correspondence with the central bank about our paper money, our banking bills. They're all numbered, right? Every banking paper is numbered, like with dollars. Every country does that. But they changed the numbering on the euro signs, on the euro bills. And I asked them, why did you change the numbers? Because the old numbers, you could see which country was the issuer. There were Dutch euro bills, and there were German euro bills, and there were Greek euro bills. Now Greece was in a jam. I had some euros stacked away for safekeeping, for feeling safe. I didn't want the Greek paper. I wanted the Dutch paper or the German paper. And they changed the numbering. I wasn't the only one collecting dollar bills under the mattress. So they changed the numbering on the bills, and they said we changed the bills because they're being what's it called, forged. So we're going to change the bills to for safer bills, and by the way, we're going to change the numbering also. So how can I find which country is the issuer then? No, you can't find that anymore. So it's a secret algorithm. So it's still issued per country. Yeah, it's still issued per country, but you're not able to see who issues it anymore. So that was way before all the corona stuff happened way before I turned journalist. I learned that. Some in Holland notoriously pay by cash, and I'm proud of them. And I think everybody should do that. Don't pay by PIN, and just go in line at the cashier, at the checkout, pay with money. And some countries do that. I like countries that do that. I love Paraguay for doing that. It's a cash-driven society. People pay with real money. But if the people don't do it, and in the Netherlands they just comply and they use PIN, and there's more and more restaurants and other commercial outlets that say PIN only. Sweden has many of those. Real big shopping centers, PIN only. The Dutch are not that far yet, but we're following along.
It's it's the faults of the people, and we're going in that direction. Any thought on the economic situation? Because the other part of the goal is wiping out the middle class, and I just feel like we are seeing that happen globally. What's your feeling when it comes to, like, how is it in the Netherlands and in Europe? Do you think people are becoming poorer through inflation and whatnot?
In the Netherlands, I think we're the only country, or it feels like that says we have a nitrogen problem, fertilizer problem. We need to save nature. We have to stop using fertilizers. At the same time, there's lots of Dutch people that are pointing at the sky every day and say, what's with all those chemtrails or whatever you see? What's with all the weather modifications? True, it has been raining a lot this year. So we're not allowed to use fertilizers. It's been raining a lot, and if it's because of modification, I don't know. I see those weird clouds also. Crops are failing. That's in the news now. We have a bad crop season. Okay, I don't know what's coming, but we have poor crops. This family still has money, so we're not hungry at the end of the month, but I know lots of people in Holland are. And that is one of the reasons that I never ask for donations. What I'm going to do, I ask the people that don't know how to feed their family, ask them to spare. I'm not going to ask for money as long as I can feed my own family. That's not what I'm going to do. But there's poverty in the Netherlands, and the middle class has been wiped out for a large extent. Also, the corona measures helped there. So the government helped you. You could get a loan, and they would help you keep your business going. Yeah, now you have to pay the loan back. People are going broke right now because of that. They're wiping out the middle class in the Netherlands. I heard Jerome Powell, so that's United States, the chief of the Federal Reserve, in Jackson Hole said, and there was no surprise, but we're going to adapt to the new circumstances and we're going to lower our rates. So the Federal Reserve is going to lower the interest rates again, hoping to prop up the markets. I feel this time that's not going to work anymore. I mean, the interest rates payments are unmanageable. The debt, in the United States debt, but all countries' debt except Russia, I mentioned that, smart move of Putin, or whoever came up with that. Every country is in massive debt. And the economy is declining. Now, you mentioned Martin Armstrong. Lots of people compare this time that we're going through with the Great Depression. And I, for the longest time, thought also this is going to be the greater depression that we're in. Not the greatest. That's going to be our children experience that while we're in the... Now I'm not so sure. And Martin Armstrong says, no. What we're going through right now, and if people want to look him up, the forecaster, Armstrong Economics, and he says, no. The period we're going through now resembles most the 70s. So stagflation. We have inflation. We have stagnation. Nobody's growing, everything's in decline, but it's not a depression the way we remember depression of the 30s, the last century. Also because the images that spring to mind if you talk about the Great Depression is the food lines. People not having anything to eat. Yeah, but he said that's also because of the Dust Bowl. Crops were failing then for natural reasons. I mean, United States crops were failing. There was a food problem. And it was the United States was transforming from an agriculture society to more industrialized. So all those people coming from the farmlands couldn't make their money anymore in the city. So You cannot compare the situation of the Great Depression in the 30s to the situation we're in now. It's more stagflation comparable to the 70s. I feel the definition of depression is that you have a slowly decline in economy, and sometimes it goes up a bit, but then it declines again, and the longer trend is a downward trend. I believe that's the definition of depression. Martin Armstrong can say whatever he likes. I think we're in a depression. Only the future will tell. I sent one to Martin Armstrong also. I still don't know if it's made it to him. He's sending me his books every once in a while, his reports. So I thought, well, I finally made something. I'm going to send it back. But it's a downward trajectory, and the only way people are going to accept a new coin when faith in the old one has gone is through enforcement, through brute force. Well, the only way to force it is through war. If they're not going to get war, famine is going to help. I mean, complying makes you feed your children. You will comply. So maybe we're not going to get the war. We're just going to get the famine this time. That's my outlook.
Or both. Or as you say, a currency economic crash, which then forces in UBI, universal basic income, and CBDCs and whatnot. I guess one of my last questions, just thoughts on America, because you mentioned Kamala. The Trump thing, again, I have, it's a thesis. It's not like this is my faith, like this is, I could be wrong. I feel it was.
Let's do it briefly. So your thesis is the assassination attempt was staged. Now, my question to you, it's a sincere question. I have not read on your how you worked it out. Do you believe people were shot dead in the audience behind him? In the thesis?
I mean, yeah. Again, like I just listened to James Delingpole interview this European guy who's an expert on false flag operations, Oleg Damar something. And he was explaining it like it doesn't have to be black or white. It could be where it's staged, but then they have deep state shooters who kill people in the crowd. You get what I'm saying? Like it doesn't mean that the person in the crowd wasn't really shot, but there could be different, how do you say, aspects.
Yeah, I feel okay. Yeah, we don't have to. So we're hypothesizing. We don't know what's happened. I feel it was a true assassination attempt. Somebody actually tried. So, like, I'm choosing my words carefully. Somebody actually tried to kill Trump, and he was actually lucky to not be killed. Also, the thing with the ear. Oh, it should bleed more. Well, I'm sure I can wound you so that there's only one droplet of blood. So if I choose, depending on how that bullet grazed, you can get that damage. But it was allowed to happen. I have no doubt about that. This assassination attempt was allowed to happen or staged, but somebody actually fired a bullet, and Trump didn't see it coming. That's my analysis.
And what do you make then of the future for America? Kamala, if she comes in, it's total communism, or is there going to be civil war? Any thoughts on USA?
No. For the longest time, I thought Hillary was going to be the candidate, and she was going to be nominated at the DNC. And now they're moving Kamala. I mean, she's never won a popular vote, like our prime minister, so that doesn't say anything. Dick Schoof, our prime minister, never won anything. He never ran for anything. But Kamala, I have to say, right? She never won anything. She was very unpopular, almost as unpopular as Biden. And now they're hyping her. I could not have imagined this. I see her winning. Stranger things have happened.
But you're right. I've seen this. It's the weirdest thing where they have total control over, mind control over the media and narrative. And I mean, people, you can see photos with her dressed scantily with Montel Williams, this soap opera talk show guy, like from 30 years ago. And then she's been completely unpopular. She sounds like a total goofball. But all of a sudden, she got like 500 million behind her. They make her look like this superstar. So they can make you look any which way they like. And then that creates this impression that gives her like a wind in the sails. So, I mean, they can make her win if they want.
No, yeah, but I learned through your podcast, I think, it just came to mind now. It was like a month ago, that she actually used sex to make a career up to a certain point as a attorney. That's one thing that is now spoken out loud, and anyway, but also the donations. So that escalated quickly. People saying, "Yeah, I donated like $20, but in the records it says 2,000." They're cheating. The donations that the Democratic Party is getting is being, I don't know how that works. They're routing it through individuals that didn't donate it. What's that about?
Or some dark money.
It's one big
guess...
cheat. Nothing's real anymore. How on earth can you vote or be popular? Can it be, or is she popular at all? Doesn't it matter anymore? Are people actually voting Democrat still? I can't imagine. Then again, I don't know if I would vote for Trump.
I've given up on voting. Nothing's real anymore. Are you real, Rico, or am I
yes.
talking to
okay,
AI?
Let's close there. I was getting this thing. You have never won the Potkaars award, have you? I don't think you have. So in the Netherlands, the Jeroen Pols and Willem Engel, they did the negative award in the Corona crisis. They said these guys are traitors, traitors of our country. We're going to give an award called the Mussert Award. Now, Mussert was a traitor in the Second World War. So they went to those people, like the virologist of Erasmus, ringing the bell, or Mark van Rans in Belgium ringing the bell, say, here's flowers, plastic flowers, here's an award, it's the Mussert Award, it's for you. I filmed that. But it was negative. And at the time, I made a positive award. People that give me hope, people that use positive energy and try to change, even though they know there's no chance of success, like me, try to change the world for the better. So I got myself a 3D printer and I printed my logo, which is actually a candle. There's a little candle in here. And then I created a small one of that and I gift wrap it in a matchbox. So this is a matchbox. This is a and it's a cup, right? And it's going to be out of focus now, but this is a cup, a very small cup. It's called the Potkaars Award, and I'm giving it away to people who give me hope. And I've just decided that you're now in good company with Niels Meltzer and many others. You can look it up on potkaars.nl. Oh, you can't see it. You've just got yourself a Potkaars Award. So I'm sending another gift to Mexico. It's going to take a couple of months to make it, but you're now proud owner of the Potkaars Award, Rovoye.
That is awesome. It's gonna, thank you, the Mexican corrupt postal service, but I'll add that to my background along with your Bitcoin vinyl here. People can see it. Let me see. Yeah, there it is. I just got to get a vinyl player now. But I was going to ask you, you mentioned there in the beginning, there was another street musician did he have his last name Loco or something?
Yeah, Harry. Yeah, it's not his birth name, but he calls himself Harry Loco.
Okay, because I think it'd be for you guys Rico, which means rich in Spanish, and Loco, so you guys be like rich and crazy duo. But
I lost him. That's an interesting story there. I don't know however long you want to keep this conversation going, but I'm left. I'm politically. I've always voted left. I know you're more of a conservative, more of a right-leaning person. I would be traditional, more of a left. Not so much a socialist. I know that's not going to work. I'm a libertarian now, I would say, if anything. But Harry, he's socialist. He's with Socialist Party. So the more corruption that happened in the Dutch politics, and the more I said to Harry, well, you can't keep that up. I mean, look at what they're doing. So our paths, we lost each other. But Harry, I love him for his music and his protest song, he being the Dutch Bob Dylan, going from little venue to little venue with his guitar. But he called himself Harry Loco. Now my name is less of a cool story. I come from a long line of people called Hank. right? Henricus, that would be my baptized name. When you're baptized, you get these names. I'm Catholic. I'm raised Catholic. We're not going to do religion, I think, this conversation, maybe for next time, but I was born into Catholic family, Henricus. But my parents decided we're going to break with that Henk thing. So they looked in their book, what else can we do? And they came up with Rico. They didn't know what Rico meant. So rich, happy, that would be me, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we've covered a lot, Rico. I guess the main theme is escaping the West, the tyranny. But, you know, all hope is not lost. I always say, you know, every day I remain chipper, joyful, a good disposition, no matter what the situation. And every day we get up, you know, and move forward. Any final thoughts for us? Thoughts on the way forward, or whatnot?
Yeah. I try to listen to most of your podcasts, and I know that I haven't been doing that over the last year. And preparing for this conversation, I listened to everything you put out there for the last couple of months. And that is not the root of hope, describing who's doing things wrong there, describing who's doing things wrong there, describing what's wrong in that conflict, describing that war. If we want to change the world to a world that we want to live in, we have to do that. Now you're doing that. So on the positive side, you're a journalist. You're doing honest journalism. You're reporting on what you're seeing, even though that may be a downward trajectory. You're grinding your way as a journalist. But what I want people to take away from this conversation is, be like a voyeur if he wants to park his car. He's not going to do it. He's going to park his car and suffer the fine if there's a fine, or find another spot. He's not going to comply with that crazy machine. Don't comply. Don't cooperate. Just live the way you feel life should be lived. Be like the people in Paraguay, not like the people in Sweden. Connect to people. Make music. Do fun things. Talk to friendly people. Good friends or voyeur marriage.
Yeah, I think that's important. That spirit of, it's a spirit of defiance. It's a spirit of love. It's justice, right? Upholding the things which, you know, the state is opposing. The state and the corporations now are shoving down our throats, and they can't take our attitude away from us, right? And so it's, you know, what Yuri, I bring him up a lot because, you know, he's impacted me, past guest of mine. He might be going to jail, and he said, you know, people like that have gone to jail, the Richard Wurmbrands and others, where they could still maintain joy, and they talk about freedom. I think even in the New Testament, the apostles talk about, like, you can't take, even if I'm in a cell, you can't take within me spiritually, in my mind, my joy away, my freedom, even though I'm in a cell. And so it's going to be an interesting future. Rico, tell us your projects. You've got everything's linked to your song, to the podcast. There's stuff in English as well, and you've got this Follow the Science program.
I'll do that briefly. So I encourage everybody to go to a website called C#.rocks. C#rocks. .rocks is a top level domain. So it's SEE sharp.rocks. Now C#, there's a note, right? There's a musical note. There's an old anecdote, you can read it up there, but we decided that's going to be the band name. C#.rocks is the band that created this song. I want everybody to share it. It's going to be a music video also. I went out of my way to shoot an old 80s style music video in front of an old Chevy van, black and white, film noir. It's going to be great. It's not, I can't show it just yet. But share this song. I want this thing to work. There's hope in Bitcoin. We have to hack the system. Leave your euro, leave the dollar, leave the whatever you're in. Invest, or I've got my props ready. Get yourself some gold, get yourself some silver if you have money. Just don't trust the CBDC issuing people that are defrauding you. I mean, open your eyes. Resist in that manner. So that's one project, C#.rocks. That's my song. I want everybody to promote it, see if we can hack the system and hack the musical industry, because I self-issued it. Spent lots of money doing that. But there's no record company. I want that thing on every radio station. So I want listeners to see if we can fix that, if you like the song. The other project is Follow the Science.nl. Follow the Science. I do that with a professor in Holland, Michaela Schippers. It's her channel. She was censored away from Erasmus University, the biggest university in the Netherlands, in Rotterdam, one of the biggest ones in the world. And she was not allowed to speak her mind freely, even on topics that are her expertise. Now, she can speak freely on her own channel. So we decided, well, let's build your own channel then and avoid censorship there. So I'm the techie and the journalist assisting her in that channel. We haven't produced much over the last months due to her illness and other reasons, but she's recovered. And actually tomorrow is her birthday, and I'm gonna discuss with her leading up to that party how we're gonna jumpstart Follow the Science.nl again. We interviewed Jordan Peterson and many other, Matthias Desmet, many other scientists of name. So we're gonna continue to do that. If you want to silence science, good luck. We've got a channel for that. Then Potkaars is Potkaars.nl. That's my journalistic outlet with people that give me hope, like Harvoje Moric. Those would be my projects, Harvoje.
Oh, and that lady, did she lose her job in academia, and so she's basically, is she just working on the Follow the Science then?
No. Actually, her. I'm lost for English translation words, but she's a professor. In Dutch, that would be hoogleraar, which is the highest level that you can be like on.
Tenure, or what do you call it?
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't even know. I'm not academically schooled, so. No. Her contract was renewed, I believe, earlier this year. So she's good for another couple of years. But colleagues of hers, outspoken colleagues, she's outspoken. She was one of the first to criticize the corona measures and say, well, this is going to hurt society. And by the way, that's my job. My job is to know how people excel. What you're doing here with these measures, that's going to kill our society. Maybe not economically, but the people are not going to thrive in this. That's not going to work. So she was attacked for that and put under censorship by her university, to the point where she's creative. I'm creative. We decided, well, if you can't be outspoken through the official channel in your capacity as a professor, you can still in the Netherlands be outspoken through your own channel. I mean, we're not calling names. We're just doing science through our own channel. So she's still a professor, and that makes her. But the same goes for Ioannidis. I mean, he's outspoken, but he's still one of the yeah. He's well, also you can't fire Ioannidis probably, but. No, she's still employed, long story short.
All right. Well, Rico, if I make it to Europe next year, I'll be knocking on your door, or you'll be welcome in Croatia. And, keep up the great work. You're one of the other podcasters that I know that is more chipper than others. And so keep that up. And, yeah, thanks again for being on Geopolitics and Empire.
You're much welcome. Happy to see you here. You're welcome, and your family.